My name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. In the last video, we learned about the rise of copilots and we saw how a copilot like GitHub Copilot can enhance the productivity of a software engineer, especially with respect to coding or scripting. However, towards the end of that video, I have highlighted a very important drawback of GitHub Copilot. That is, it can only make use of a public LLM. So it does not use local LLMs or on-device LLMs, which is a bottleneck for organizations where security is given utmost priority. For example, imagine you are a developer or a DevOps engineer working in a financial sector or a banking sector organization. There are very less chances of you getting approval to use GitHub Copilot for your day-to-day activities. Why? Because when you ask GitHub Copilot to enhance a block of code or even to explain a piece of code of your program, it is making API calls with the OpenAI, which is a public LLM. So it can be considered as a security risk by your organization. So very unlikely you get approval to use it within your organization. So what is the alternative? So in the same video, I have explained there is a very good alternative, that is pieces for developers. So in this tutorial, we will learn how to install pieces for developers, how to configure it, and most importantly, my favorite feature of pieces for developers, that is live context. So it is not only a AI Copilot, but it is an end-to-end developer productivity tool because it supports something like live context. So using the live context, you can ask pieces for developers to track every activity that you're doing. For example, you can ask the live context, what was the reason why a Kubernetes pod was going down 2 hours ago? So it can explain you why did the pod go down, what are the reasons for it, and how you can fix the pod failure that happened 2 hours ago, because it is tracking your work. Also, you can ask it what was the conversation that you had with your colleague 2 days back, or to summarize a email chain, or to summarize a complete blog. So we are going to do a demonstration of live context as well. It's going to be super interesting. So please watch this video till the end. Let's start with installing pieces for developers. You can use the link in the description to get to this page. So let's click on Get Started. A point to note, it supports Linux, Windows, as well as Mac OS. So it doesn't matter which operating system you are using. You can use pieces for developers. I'm on Mac OS, so I'll select that. And make sure you select Intel chip or Apple Silicon accordingly. So I will use download pieces package Intel. So it just downloads a PKG file. While it's getting downloaded, one thing to tell you is it installs two components. One is the pieces for developers desktop app, and the second thing is the OS server. OS server is basically a background process that is running, whereas pieces for developers desktop app is the one where you can use it as a interactive chatbot, or you can make any configuration changes such as switching between the LLMs. So the PKG file is downloaded, and I have also used pieces for developers in the past. So I have the PKG files that I have already downloaded as well. But just to show you, I have downloaded it again. Double click on the PKG file. It opens a installer. Click on the continue.
Make sure you have 1.12 GB of free space on your disk. And also, you need to make sure you are granting all the required permissions at any point of time. If the features like live context is not working, just go back to your privacy and security settings and verify if you have granted all the permissions. Installation does not take a lot of time. It will be installed in less than a minute, and then we can proceed with configuring the preferences according to our choice. Okay, so the desktop app is launched and also the OS server is also running. So it's time to configure some personalization preferences. You can also do it later point of time, but make sure when you're installing it for the first time, you at least provided some details of how you are going to use pieces for developers. So I will select my developer persona as DevOps engineer. I will select the programming languages as Go, Python, and Shell. We will do a demonstration with Visual Studio Code extension. That's why I selected the option as VS Code and the experience level as intermediate. At any point of time, if you don't understand the preferences, because you might be trying pieces for developers for the first time, you can leave the recommended options, and later when you understand them better, you can come back and change the preferences. This is the important section, offline or connected, which we were discussing in the introduction as well. So pieces for developers can support offline models. For example, you can see list of offline models. You can select any one of them, like let's say Llama 2 7B, and you can click on the download button. So the model gets downloaded onto your disk and you can use Llama 2 along with the pieces for developers. However, it is also important to note that a list of public or cloud LLMs are also supported, like GPT-4o, GPT 3.5 Turbo, or Gemini models. So you can keep switching between the models if public LLMs are allowed to use in your organization. Otherwise, you can just use the offline models. I will show how to switch between the models as we keep using the prompts on the Pieces for Developers desktop app. Okay, now click on Finish Onboarding. So it says, Welcome to Pieces Copilot. You can also use it as a AI chatbot, just like how you use ChatGPT. For example, I can just ask, what are the top scripting languages for DevOps engineers? And if you're not finding the answer good enough, you can also go back and switch between the cloud models. And you can also use the prompt against your on device model. This is how you switch between the models. For example, you can ask the same prompt against on device model. So just scroll down, select one of the models. Let's say I use Granite 3B, which is a lightweight model. I'm using a CPU based instance. So I can select Granite 3B and continue with the prompts, or ask the same prompt again. But make sure, if you have a low resource machine, if you have a CPU based machine, then better you should use a public model or the cloud model, because running model locally or the offline models is very resource intensive. Okay, now I want to talk about the interesting aspect. The one that I like the most about pieces for developers is the live context. So what exactly is it? I've given you a brief introduction. Now let's use it in practical. So you need to set the context on and also go to the OS pieces OS server and make sure you turn on workstream pattern engine. So workstream pattern engine is the one that enables the live context. If you are not able to turn this on, that means you have not granted required privileges to the pieces for developers. Okay, now I have workstream pattern engine on and I also have live context on. Let's see a use case how it can improve the developer productivity or DevOps engineer productivity. So I have a Kubernetes cluster. My terminal is connected to the Kubernetes cluster. And if I do kubectl get pods, I have a pod that is in the failing state. So the pod status says image pull back off, and there is some issue with this pod. Now I want to understand what is the issue and how to fix this issue. One thing that you do while using ChatGPT or any other copilots is you provide them the instructions that you say, okay, I have a pod that is failing. The status of it is image pull back off. And you also provide more details. For example, you might describe the pod and go through the error within the description. And you will copy paste probably one part of it and tell ChatGPT that this is the error that I'm facing, how to solve the error. But if you are using pieces for developers, you don't have to do it when you have live context enabled. Why? Because you have live context enabled, it is tracking your work. Now, if you can go to the desktop app and just ask what was the issue with the pod, why is it in the failing state? So initially, I will ask why is it in the failing state? Then I will also ask it solution to fix the pod and get it to the running state. Let's see if it can understand which pod I am talking about. Perfect. It said you have a pod in the image pull back off. And this is the image that you have used, which is Nginx 152.10.8. And that is the reason why your pod is in the failing state. It says image name and tag can be an issue. As a continuation, I can also ask how to fix this error. So here I'm not providing any context to pieces for developers. The reason why it is understanding is because the live context is turned on. So it says either you need to create this particular image with the tag or use Nginx image with the latest tag. Let's see if that can fix the issue. So if I just do kubectl edit deploy and as suggested by the pieces for developers, if I change the image from this particular tag to latest, let's see if the pod moves to the running state. Now, if I do kubectl get pods, the new pod is in the running state and the old pod is moving to the terminated status. If I search again, I will see the pod in the running status. So this is how the live context can be very helpful. It keeps tracking your entire activity and maintains a context within itself. Now you might wonder, but Abhishek, is it a security concern? Because it is tracking my entire activity. So do I have any issues? Let me tell you two things. One is the context that pieces for developers is storing is local to your machine. So it stores the entire thing on your disk. Whatever context it is capturing is available on your machine. So you can be rest assured that the data is secure. Second thing, if you are still not confident when you are doing a particular activity, let's say you want to store your password or you are not sure if it is secure to use live context doing a particular activity, you can also go back and you can pause it for 15 minutes, 24 hours, 6 hours. according to the time frame that you wish to. Or you can completely turn off the live context as well. It also provides an option where you can delete the live context. Let's say you want to delete last 1 week's live context. You can also do it with pieces for developers. Now, what are the other things that you can do with live context? You can do many things, like, for example, as a DevOps engineer, you keep reading a lot of things. Let's say you want to go through a blog, MLOps top tools, and you came across a blog, you find it interesting, but it's a very lengthy blog. It says 25 top MLOps tools in 2024, and you just want to summarize this blog. So you can just keep scrolling through the blog, and once you're done scrolling, you can just go back to the pieces for developers and you can ask it, okay, what was the summary of the web page that I was scrolling a couple of minutes ago, or that I scrolled 2 days back? Just provide it the name of the web page, and it can give you even things that it captured 7 days ago. Now, let me ask, can you give a summary of web page that I was scrolling about MLOps? So you can see here, now it is again trying to get the information from the context that it has stored, and it is summarizing the entire web page for us. What are the MLOps tools in 2024? What exactly are the highlights of that particular blog? So this is how it can enhance the developer productivity. You can use it to summarize a email conversation about a Jira ticket that you had 7 days ago, or you can ask solution for a particular Jira issue that you are working 2 days back. All that things using the live context. So it's a very cool feature, and Pieces for Developers is the first one to do the live context as well as on-device offline LLMs. Now let's look at another feature of Pieces for Developers, that is Visual Studio Code extension. So let me open Visual Studio Code with a open source project that I am contributing to. And what I want to do is I want to ask Pieces for Developers to explain a function. Imagine you have a new member in your organization and you want the new member to understand the code. So you schedule a lot of KT sessions, you try to explain them. Instead, if you have Pieces for Developers, you can simply ask them to look at the code. They can use this Visual Studio Code extension. Just go to the extension section, search for pieces. You will find pieces for Visual Studio Code. All that you need to do is just enable, and rest is taken care. So I have highlighted this function. Now let me ask pieces, ask the Copilot. Okay, I will just ask, can you explain this function and what is it doing? So you will see the Copilot section. You can also configure the pieces settings here, and it will start explaining you each and every line of the code. So it explains what is the function signature, what variables are declared inside this function block, what is the append thing doing here, why did you use a particular array, why did you use a list. Everything that is part of this function is explained using the Copilot extension. The cool thing is I can also go ahead and ask it, can I improve the above function, and if there is any improvement, if you have not written the code in the most optimal way, it will also provide you alternatives. not just one alternative, but all the possible alternatives. So I can just remove the previous for loop and ask it to insert. So now I have the for loop that is written in the optimal way. Perfect. So this is how you can use the Copilot extension for improving your code and also for understanding specific parts of the code. One more interesting thing is if you like a particular snippet, you can also save that snippet for your later use. Now I have saved that as part of the snippet. If I look at the saved materials, I can find that snippet. So this is how you can save code, you can share code with your peers using pieces for developers. So this is another interesting feature which is not supported by the copilots, where you can actually save the material to the copilot. So these are some of the interesting features. If you want me to write an end-to-end application along with the code, along with the tests using pieces for developers, let me know in the comment section. I will make a detailed video where I can show how to write a end-to-end two-tier Python application only by using pieces for developers. I will only be providing the logic. Rest is taken care by the Copilot. Thank you so much for watching today's video. See you all in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.